The world of light novels is vast and varied, from Isekai number 1 to student slice of life number 64. But one of the titles that I rarely hear anybody talk about these days is Spice and Wolf. I read volume 1 of Spice and Wolf a few years ago and had a really great time. But is it worth reading today? I recently read the first 5 volumes of Spice and Wolf, and what did I think? Well, in a word, economics. Kraft Lawrence is a lonely travelling merchant, wandering from town to town, with just his horse, cart, and whatever wares he currently has. It's a somewhat mundane life full of routine. However, Lawrence has a dream, to one day own his own store. Until one day, Lawrence finds a girl asleep on his cart. This girl, however, has the appearance of a wolf, with ears and a floppy tail. This is Holo, the wise wolf, the god of wheat, whom has grown tired of tending the harvests in the countryside and just wishes to return home. The two become companions, and perhaps something more. One of the things I love about Spice and Wolf is the setting. Now, medieval fantasy isn't something completely brand new, but this is more medieval than it is fantasy. A lot of series tend to do the whole thing of, having it kind of, there's elves and orcs and multiple monsters all around. This one, it does have gods and stuff, but it doesn't really go overboard and things. It feels very grounded, and if you turned around and said, this is historically accurate, I would be cautious, but somewhat agreeable. While it's not outright stated where Spice and Wolf takes place, it's very easy to assume this takes place in and around the countries of Germany, Poland, and Austria. We have plenty of small countryside towns, large towns hiding hidden secrets, and of course the changing of faith from local gods spoken in folklore to the almighty church, whose hand begins to extend across the continent. One of the main things in this series is economics, and honestly, I think the author has done a very good job of portraying it. They don't make it too difficult that you just sit and look confused, but it's not completely basic either. They do a good job of making you genuinely believe that, this is happening. Buy low, sell high, and each volume will throw a curveball into the mix. As Lawrence travels and trades, he usually ends up in a lot of sticky situations, all revolve around money or the wares, often perilous enough to risk his life. This makes the series tense enough to keep the pages turning. I'm not going to lie, I genuinely thought that there was not going to be enough content in each of these volumes to warrant the amount of volumes the series has. I mean, it's on volume 25 now? But I was mistaken, because each volume is jam-packed and they continue to make things new and refreshing. Let's talk about the characters, and Lawrence and Holo both really help contribute to how things run. Lawrence being a practical, frugal man who rarely spends more than he has to. He's calculating, but is so from living life rather than a random reason pulled simply for narrative. Yet, he also fails, miscalculating and often needing to do something incredibly risky to try and save himself. Holo is smart and confident, somewhat flirtatious and manipulative, but overall good-natured. As the main heroine, she is often Lawrence's equal, yet also harbours a lot of fears such as being alone. She has a number of abilities such as a heightened sense of smell or being able to transform into her wolf form. The strength of our main characters really pushes the narrative, and honestly I wouldn't have been invested in the series as much as I am without the shining stars of the main cast. Now, this is a romance, and one of the things you are going to be asking, is there any payoff? Well, I'm going to answer that in a somewhat different way by telling you there is a sequel focusing on their child called Wolf and Parchment. So far, each of the volumes I've read has a standalone adventure, usually following the format of go to town, discover lore about town, oh no, something bad has happened, resolution, and each volume being around 250 pages each. This sounds incredibly generic, but believe me, there are enough twists and turns, and with a unique premise of economics, you'll be heavily invested in seeing things to the end. I'm going to be honest, the series does have its tense moments, but the pages keep turning. As things start to escalate and things become more of a life and death situation, well, I'm not going to lie, I was hooked to buy the next volume. It's probably about time I spoke of the romance in the series. While we know the two are going to get together in the end, it doesn't necessarily feel forced. There is a lot of will they, won't they, as each have their own specific goals, and we get the odd character who possesses a risk as a love interest. A lot of the series does hang on how attached you are of having these two characters together, which, if I'm perfectly honest, I was. Now, I do want to talk about the world building in this one as well, because, honestly, this series touched me in a way that I've not felt in a long time. I really love the way the world was built up in this one. Now, world building for me is a world that feels alive. A world that extends beyond just the main characters. So many times we see in series where it's kind of like, well, what's happening in the rest of the world? Don't know. It's all about just the main characters and what they're doing right now. Spice and Wolf, even though we don't always see the other characters, you can genuinely believe things are happening. The whole fact that this hinges on economics proves that. In the series, you get Hollow and Lawrence's adventures. However, I'm well aware that there are plenty of side stories and a sizable cast. You learn the ins and outs of economics in each town, which just makes things just fall into place that much easier. I'm going to be honest, when reading this, I genuinely wish there was a game that you could go around and buy low and sell high with your horse and cart, with enough interesting locales to make the journeys interesting. I know we had Suikoden 2, which had the whole of the kind of trading system where you genuinely could buy low and sell high, and you had to do that in order to recruit one of the characters, but I've not seen anything where that is entirely the focus. There probably is, but hey, I haven't found it yet. Spice and Wolf has a well thought out world that feels too real. I mean, I guess it is based on a real world and real world locations, but I just want to state how good it all feels. When it comes to the light novel itself, as of recording, there are 23 titles in Spice and Wolf. Now, from what I understand, the series kind of ends around volume 17 or 18 and starts picking up again not long afterwards. But there's also Wolf and Parchment, which is about 10 volumes as of recording this video. So hey, there is plenty and plenty of volumes to read. In the first volume, we are introduced to Lawrence and Holo, their life and the pitfalls that will start to appear in their journey north. It's an incredibly strong opening volume and is one of those ones that just gives an incredibly good impression of the series. Now, over the years, I have read so many light novels, and I always think that a volume 1 is the most important part. It's your first impression, and a lot of authors will really struggle to really make the series shine in that first volume. We've got to remember that a lot of authors are, well, inexperienced. Sometimes this is their very first novel that they've wrote. It's just been adapted into a light novel because it took off. But Spice and Wolf, don't worry about that. Volume 1 hooks you immediately and doesn't beat around the bush. You get in Volume 1 what you're going to get for the rest of the series. It's that good. As the volumes continue, we are introduced to more characters and situations, as to be expected. For example, Volume 2 revolves around shepherds, gold and bankruptcy, and Volume 3 gives us a pivotal moment between Lawrence and Holo. While the series does focus on economics and the like, each volume does genuinely bring something new to the table, at least in the first 5 volumes. I genuinely did like the fact that it managed to keep me hooked very easily. I was expecting these to kind of get boring after maybe 2 or 3 volumes, but no, the hooks were in, and each volume brought something new to the table to keep things, well, spicy. Spice Wolf is one of those series that is honestly well deserved for its high praise. You aren't going to get many other titles that are better than this one, and I'd implore everyone who has an interest in light novels to at least give it a go. You can pick up the digital volumes via Bookwalker or Amazon, or it's available physically. It also has a very nifty collector's Bible version that has most of the volumes contained in too. Spice Wolf is easily, and I mean absolutely easily, one of the peaks of light novels. It's an interesting read, it's an easy read, the characters are compelling, the economics is something that I haven't seen in any other light novel. But best of all, it's well written, and that's more than what you can ask for in some of these cases. But that's just my opinion. If you want more light novel recommendations, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I read so many light novels and I pass on my opinions to you. See you in the next chapter.